everybody, it's Emily, your doula here at June, and today we're going to be talking about introducing your baby to a bottle. So deciding how to feed your baby and then figuring out how to adjust that plan as you go along can bring about a lot of feelings of anxiety for new families. The thing to remember is that with all aspects of parenting, including feeding, there's no one right approach to this. And you are going to figure out what works best for you and for your baby as you go along. That said, there are definitely some handy things to keep in mind as you're figuring out how to introduce the bottle and what bottle to introduce. And so we're going to be going over that today. So how do we go about choosing a bottle? It's a really, really great question, especially when we think about how many options there are out there and how many of those options claim to be the best. This one's going to be the most breast-like bottle for your breastfed baby. And this bottle is going to solve all of your digestion problems that your baby's having. But the truth is there are really only a couple of things that you need to keep in mind when you're choosing a bottle. So the first thing to think about is flow. How fast is milk flowing through the nipple? Generally speaking, we want to choose the slowest flow nipple possible because we want baby to slow down with the bottle feeds. This is going to help mimic what they do with the breast. Breastfeeding is a lot harder than bottle feeding, and we don't want babies to get used to guzzling. It's not great for their digestion. It makes it harder for them to figure out when they're full, and particularly for babies who are going back and forth between the breast and the bottle, we want to make the bottle a little bit more work for them. So slowest flow is the way to go. So one of the tricky things is that not all slow flow nipples are created equal. One brand slow flow is going to be slower than another brand's slow flow nipple, for instance. The Dr. Brown's bottles generally have a pretty good slow flow, though I actually even like to recommend that families buy the level 0 preemie nipples that you can get for Dr. Brown's bottles, which are really great for babies going back and forth between breast and bottle. The Lancino Mama bottles are also great in terms of both nipple shape and the flow. The next thing we're going to think about is the nipple shape and slope. And we're going to take a look at the Dr. Brown's original bottles to start with. This is the narrow-necked Dr. Brown's. And this is an example of a nipple that I really like the shape of. We want to look for a nipple that has a really gradual slope from the tip to the base. So it's not an abrupt change from the tip to a wide base. That's going to make it harder for baby to latch. The gradual slope, like on this Dr. Brown's and also on the Lancino Mama bottles, this gradual slope is going to allow baby to get a better seal on the nipple and also get more of that nipple in their mouth before they make that seal. That's going to make for an easier and better feed. Bottles that we want to avoid are the ones that have a narrow tip here that abruptly change to a wide base. That's going to make it much harder for baby to get a good chunk of that nipple in and have that good seal. This is the Komotomo bottle, not my favorite. The Avent natural bottles also have that more abrupt switch from the tip to the base. We want to avoid those. So generally speaking, when we think about nipple shape, you want to avoid any nipples that have a funky tip shape or that are tilted at a weird angle. Some examples of that would be this Nook bottle. You can see it's got a bulbous part here at the tip. The Mam is another bottle that's a pretty common one, but has a really sort of flat, squished nipple here. General rule of thumb, if you wouldn't want your own nipple to come out of baby's mouth looking like this, don't choose that bottle nipple. Another thing to keep in mind too is that there are no bottles that are exactly like the breast, and that is okay. But there are a lot of bottles out there that claim to be just like the breast. For instance, bottles that look exactly like a breast, and bottles that feel just like a breast. They're soft and squishy. That has no bearing on whether baby will take that bottle or not. Finding the right bottle for your baby can take a little bit of trial and error because every baby is a little bit different. I generally suggest that families start with just 1 or 2 different kinds of bottle and get one of those bottles each. And then try those out, see how your baby does, and go from there. When you're ready to feed your baby, you're gonna start with a nice clean bottle, and you're going to pop the nipple into the O-ring piece. Just like that. Some bottles are a little trickier than others. The Dr. Brown's is nice and easy. Some bottles just then have the bottle part and the nipple and O-ring, and you just screw them together just like that. This Dr. Brown's bottle has an air vent that goes in it, so I'm gonna take the 2 pieces of the air vent here and pop them together. Then I'm gonna fill my bottle to wherever I want it, put my air vent in, and screw the top on nice and snug. So when you're ready to feed your baby and your bottle's ready to go, you're going to want to warm it to room temperature or a little bit warmer, especially if your baby is still a newborn. Warming the bottle can help make it easier for them to go from breast to bottle, make it easier for them to take the bottle, and also helps with their digestion, I think, in the early days. So to warm the bottle, you're not gonna wanna microwave the bottle. Never put baby's milk in the microwave because it heats really unevenly. So what you can do instead is to grab a mug or a bowl and fill it with hot water from the tap. Pop your bottle in and let it sit for about 5 minutes or so, then check it. The water around the bottle may go a little cold, so you might have to refill with an extra round of hot water to get it to the right temperature. When you think it's ready, you're gonna give it a little swirl, tip it upside down, and let a drop come onto your wrist to test and make sure that that temperature is just right. It should feel warm and comfortable to your wrist, not too hot. And that's how you'll know it's ready for your baby.